Hey, this is Walt from StogieReview.com here with another video cigar review, and this time I'm doing a short ashes slash first impressions review. I got some cigars that I'd never heard of up until Friday, and I'm kind of eager to smoke them because they look very well made, and the little bit of feedback I've heard on them was positive. And the brand name is Curivari. Now, as I said, I've never heard of the brand before, and I got them on Friday when I stopped in at a local shop to visit. My usual shop was closed on Friday. The owner was on vacation, and so I decided that I was going to, do the whole cigar shop thing, but just visit the shop that I hadn't been to in a while. And I wound up driving all the way down to Skip Pack, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour away. And I visited a friend of mine, Jim Cronin, that owns Top Shelf Cigars. And when I got there, I got to talking to Jim a little bit, and he asked me, "Hey, have you ever heard of this Curivari brand?" And I told him no, that the name's not ringing any bells. And he said, "Well, I got an email from him, recently asking if it would be okay if they sent samples." So of course I told him it was okay, and a few days later the sample showed up, and he said, "And this is what showed up." And he kind of points to the table that's beside him, and here are, 8 boxes of cigars, 10 count boxes. I guess they sent a box of everything that they make, and he wanted me to check some of them out. So he gave me 2 of everything that he had. I think maybe a dozen cigars I walked out of there with, but he smoked one of them before I got there, and he had good things to say about it. So I'm really interested in trying them out. So with that whole backstory groundwork laid, let's get started on my very first Curivari experience. The first thing that kind of strikes me or grabs my attention is the bands are very reminiscent of Cuban brands. Now this one sort of at first glance kind of reminds me of the Partagas Serie D number 4, the red band with the gold lettering. There's another size that has a band that looks similar to the Partagas Lusitania. There's another band that kind of looks like the Cuban Hoyt Monterey with the white background, and I guess it's red lettering and red infill. But they look interesting. From what I understand, they're all made in Nicaragua. I don't know what the wrapper, binder, and filler are on any of them. The only thing I'm really sure of on this cigar is that it is the Epicure. It's a 4.5 by 52, I believe. And the price appears to be about $6 a stick, or $60 for a 10 count box. Yeah, 52 by 4.5. And 10 count boxes should run roughly $60. So let's go ahead and get started. The construction looks very good. It's a nice consistent color from head to foot. I've got a little bit of sparkle, so we have a bit of plume forming. The cigar is really firm. Just a little bit of a soft spot below the band. Aside from that, it looks and feels very good. Just kind of glancing at the foot, it doesn't lead me to believe that it's going to be plugged or really stiff, despite it being very well packed. And the draw is nice and free. And the cold draw has got sort of a little bit of a leathery kind of flavor to it. So we'll go ahead and get this thing lit. I'll try to make this review quick, although at the moment it's kind of dragging on. But we'll see what we can do about picking up the pace, so you're not watching me smoke a cigar for far too long. got sort of a dry, kind of dusty aroma at first. Kind of makes me think of like wood dust. And it's very punchy through the sinus at first. That first puff was kind of power. I had the urge, I felt like my eyes were going to start watering a little bit, but it's off to a good start. The power is definitely there in the beginning. If this power holds out throughout the entire cigar, it's going to be interesting because the flavor is developing. You can feel it, you can taste it, and there's a nice heavy punch behind it. And that's kind of right up my alley. Even at like 8 a.m. first cigar of the day, I don't mind big heavy hitters. As long as they're not like nicotine packed and make me ill. But this one's off to a very good start, so I'm interested to see how it goes. So with that said, sit tight and I'll be right back. Well, I'm back, still plugging along on my Curivari Reserva Limitada Epicure, and so far it's been doing pretty well. The ash is a bit dark. It's a little on the wavy side now. It did look much better when the ash accumulated to about an inch or so. The burn line was straighter. It was still kind of dark, and it's not particularly strong. I just happened to move my hand a little bit, and I had the whole ash come crashing down on my lap. Now that I know that the ash is a bit weak, I just kind of keep it close to the ashtray when it gets longer, and then gentle tap solves the problem. And the ash remains where it's supposed to be. It's not flaking or floating off the end of the cigar as I move around. So it's being contained fairly well. Each puff is producing a good solid supply of smoke. It's nice and dense, coats the palate well, it's easy to get through the sinus. Still, when I retrohale the smoke or turn it back through and blow it out my nose, it's got a bit of kind of like an aggressive edge to it. It is a little bitey, but it's not over the top. I really don't mind it, but I'm kind of accustomed to doing that more than I should. I probably do it with 90% of the cigar when most people say that you should do it, once every few puffs. But I do it a lot, just habit. Yeah, it's got a bit of a... Wow. That last one was really peppery. More so than it was earlier on. I'm definitely getting the urge for my eyes to start watering. But I like it. That peppery punch is a nice trait. I like that quite a bit. In the flavor department, it's not really intense. It's mostly like dry components. It dries the palate just a little bit. It's got sort of like a dried cocoa-like flavor, like a dry, sort of leathery kind of taste. And there really isn't much going on outside of that. And now with kind of a peppery blast through the sinus, it makes for an interesting cigar. It hasn't really changed up a whole lot throughout. The pepper is new. It wasn't nearly that pungent or powerful. I shouldn't say pungent because I like it, but it wasn't so heavy earlier on. I like the change, but I'm interested to see where it goes from there. This is probably better suited to be smoked afternoon, evening, but again, I like it just the way it is earlier on in the morning. It's been about an hour since I lit the cigar. I am pairing it with coffee, and the pairing, one isn't washing out the other, so it's doing well in that respect. The coffee adds a little bit of a sort of a bitter, creamy kind of texture where the cigar is a bit dry. So take a puff of the cigar, 2-3 puffs, and then a little sip of coffee, and you get the creaminess that the cigar is missing. So they complement one another, and the pairing works out well. Again, I'm about at the halfway point, so I'm probably going to stop in one more time. We'll take a look at how the cigar is developing from there, and then I'll let you be on your way. So, sit tight. Well, I'm back, and as you can see, it's about time to wrap up my Curivari. Wow, I totally had a brain fart there. Time to wrap up my Curivari Reserva Limitada, I believe, Epicure. Yep, Reserva Limitada. And as you can see when I was holding the cigar up to the camera, the burn line's a little straighter. It's still got a bit of a wave to it. The ash is still kind of dark. I'm still not getting any flaking or flowering going on. And the ash is more or less the same. It's not holding on tremendously well. You know, it'll get an inch and a half long if you allow it, but it doesn't take much movement for that ash to come off. So as a result, I like to keep it kind of neat and trim. Now, as far as the cigar itself goes, smoking wise, it's still producing a good supply of smoke. The resting smoke is very pleasant. The density is nice and thick. It's got a rich flavor profile to it that's still a bit on the dry side, although not quite as dry now as it was earlier. I'm still getting primarily like a cocoa powder kind of a flavor, and what I can only really describe as sort of a dry leather taste. The interesting thing is there's a real pepper blast through the sinuses when you retrohale the smoke. That peppery, spicy blast doesn't transfer over to the palate. It's just through the sinuses, and for one, that makes it more than just, you know, a really peppery cigar. Because if you don't retrohale the smoke a lot, you're not going to be overwhelmed by that peppery intensity. If you're retrohaling every half dozen to a dozen puffs, I think you'll find it very pleasant. If you're like me, where you do it constantly, it can become a bit overwhelming, but I really don't mind it. I actually kind of appreciate that it's almost like a sort of a cleansing kind of blast. It just kind of washes all of the aroma and sensation out of the palate, and then leaves you fresh for the next puff, if that kind of makes much sense. Again, I think the cigar is about $6 a piece. I've never heard of them or seen them in any stores. I don't know when I can expect to see something somewhere, or if these are still sort of limited production because the company is relatively small. I really don't know how that works, but I really wouldn't mind seeing these in some of the local shops. I think it's a very solid cigar. I like the flavor profile. I'm really impressed with it, and I don't think $6 is out of line. I mean, it's not your bargain level, La Traviata or Oliva Serie G, things like that, where they're easier on the wallet. I mean, these start at $6. Some of them go up as high as about $9 a piece. So obviously, because it's a smaller boutique brand, you're going to see larger prices than your nationally distributed, crank them out by the thousands cigars. So I don't mind seeing the price a little bit higher. I don't think it's out of line for what you're getting. I think it's a good solid cigar at a very fair price point. I'm really interested in trying the other cigars now. I have a variety of other ones in different shapes and sizes, so I'm interested to see what all the line has to offer, because this one really is impressive. And this video is going on forever, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'm just going to end it at that. I really enjoyed the cigar. Would definitely suggest picking one up if you can find them, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. If you've had this cigar, or if you can get this cigar, smoke it, and hit the comment section and let us know what you think. I'm really interested in seeing more about this small boutique brand, and well, you're the people to give it to me, so hit up the comment section. And until next time, happy smoking. Was I being rude when I just pointed? I don't want to get the backlash that Jerry gets just for a little simple hand motion there. I guess if I keep doing it, that's even worse, right? Could be worse.